church had a youth group, teenagers, and it met every Sunday evening, and which I don't know that churches do that now, but it was a way to keep the kids connected with the church.
Yeah, we still have those.
You do have that.
Yeah.
I know. Well, we had the youth group, and that's where we met, and we did lots of things with them. I didn't go to university because I knew that. I mean, our family just didn't have enough money. I could have gone down there and worked and gone to school, or I don't know that I could have found enough work to be able to pay for going to school.
Do you remember if a lot of women went to college at the time?
No, a lot didn't, because their families couldn't afford it.
Yeah, so it was more men at the time than women.
Well, if it were if they had a boy in the family, why they tried very hard to get him to go, and they tried to help the girls go, but we were just very poor.
Yeah.
There was a bigger percent of people that did not go to college than go down.
But they just couldn't afford to.
Yeah, especially during the Depression
Yeah.
era.
And
Yeah.
this was the Depression era.
Yeah.
And it was real bad.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that it would just be great if I had a different dress to wear to school each of the 5 days.
Yeah. Life would be better if only.
I had 3 dresses. So 2 of them had to be worn twice.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
And
So how did you two met through the youth group, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when was like your first time that you guys went out on a date, quote unquote?
Well, it was on that Thanksgiving, and she went with me to collect for papers because I had this good route, and I knew they would be there. They paid me by the month, and anyway,
they'd be there at Thanksgiving.
anyway, the group at her house. Anyway, they voted whether she should go with me. Her mother didn't want her to go because she was 13 and I was 15, I think.
We started dating.
Maybe 16 because.
Maybe you'd had your birthday. No, it was Thanksgiving, so you were still 15. But anyway, we.
They voted, and they finally decided she could go with me to collect papers for me.
So tell me about the voting. Did they all just decide?
They around the table. We had the dining room table. Well, there must have been 10. There were probably 12 or 14 people there, of whom I was one. And so anyway, they all discussed it, and they voted and decided that that I could go. My dad didn't want me to go, and my mother did. And so the family voted.
The family decided your fate.
And so was I 13 then? 14? I was 13, almost 14. And we got married when I was 20, I guess. And I hadn't had my 21st birthday, and you were 23. He had just had his 23rd birthday. He's really 2 years older than me. And,
he's an old man.
Yeah.
He robbed the cradle.
Yes, he did.
But I was working at the Oklahoma at Pearl Harbor, the morning of Pearl Harbor. And
He was probably among the first 3 or 4 in the city to know that
December the
what had
7th,
happened.
1941, and we knew that it was just a matter of time that I would be going to school. And
So when you first heard about Pearl Harbor, what was your thought? What did you think about what went straight to your mind? What was your immediate thought?
Well, it was about
amazing.
It was about 4 o'clock in the morning when
Yeah.
when word came over the wire photo that airplanes, presumably Japanese, are bombing Pearl Harbor, and there were about 3 or 4 of us left in the building at the time because they'd already put the
You called the radio
the Sunday
station.
morning paper to bed, and anyway,
Nobody knew where Pearl Harbor was.
I called the city editor, who was a very well-educated man, and asked him about where Pearl Harbor was, and he said he didn't know, and anyway, they kept sending this same message without saying where Pearl Harbor was, and I called the city editor, and we even called Mr. Gaylord, and his first question was, that's in the Philippines, isn't it? And nobody knew where Pearl Harbor was. And finally,
Well, you wouldn't know where harbors were
a little
if
bit
it
later,
said Hawaii. Yeah, or something. That way they would have known.
Yeah.
finally, a little bit later, they said America is being bombed, so that's when I called Mr. Gaylord. And
He was so.
anyway,
Yeah.
they put out a Sunday morning extra paper because the paper had already been printed for Sunday morning. And I called station WKY, who also had a wire photo, and they said, yeah, they got it, but they didn't know where Pearl Harbor was.
So nobody knew.
This was 4 o'clock in the morning.
Well, it's just like, if they'd say some harbor,
Yeah, anywhere else we wouldn't really
Anywhere else?
know.
unless you knew something that way, you wouldn't know
But
where it
everybody
was.
knows where Pearl Harbor is today. But
Yeah, of course, of
they
course.
didn't, even these well-educated people.
Yeah. So when you first understood that Pearl Harbor was being bombed, did you get the impression that we were probably going to enter the war like immediately after this, like start
Yes,
against
I knew
the?
that things were going to start happening.
Yeah.
And then we decided we would go ahead and get married after Marion had gotten this good job. Incidentally, they started working on Tinker Field before Pearl Harbor.
I worked for the company that built
Yes.
Tinkerfield.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But they were already working on Tinker Field before Pearl Harbor.
Well, they anticipated something was going to happen, I think.
Yeah, so that's why they decided to do that. Okay, and I have another question for you, Marion. This is about going back to the Great Depression really quick. The last question. About the Great Depression, when you said it was really hard for your family to go through, what really changed in your life during that time period? Everything?
My father had a direct mail advertising business. And in other words, he did advertising. And some of it was by letter that we mailed like to 1,000 people. A store that had charged customers or something like that, Johnny Brown or some of those stores, they would send letters to their charge account people, trying to encourage them to come in. They were having a certain kind of sale next week, something of that sort. So they would send letters throughout the year, and a Christmas letter every year at Christmas. My dad often would write the Christmas letter for a couple of the companies, and it would of course be 2 different letters.
Yeah.
And we'd mail them out, and we had machines that one of them had type little ABCs pieces, and you took each one of them and took formed words and then put it on a piece of equipment, a line that had lines. And then they had great big things like typewriter ribbons, only they were wide and quite long. And it was a machine where you put paper through it, and it would print Then we had, my mother would cut ribbons, like that would be wide enough, like you would go on the typewriter, and you could put it, and we could address like Mr. John Jones, dear Mr. Jones, and it would match exactly the letter.
That's cool.
And for a long time, those people often thought that the company had written them individually a letter. And so anyway, he had direct mail advertising, and I worked there in high school on the weekends and learned to answer telephones and do business with customers when I was 12 and 13 and 14 years old.
Well, those are some good skills to have when you're young.
But I didn't go to university.
Yeah.
And
unfortunately.
Well, in a way.
In a way, yeah.
Yes, because there were things, but really, I have never really missed it.
Yeah.
Of course, I was with him, and he didn't look down on me because I didn't go, I guess.
Yeah,
And,
that's good.
But I made straight A's all through school and everything, so.
Yeah. So when
By high school, I had a good high school education, and I took hard subjects.
Yeah, that'll work. That'll get you through. So when the Depression came, did your father lose his business?
He just he didn't lose it, but there just weren't any customers.
So did he sell it,
He
or?
had a few. No, we hung on to it. He had a few stores that still, to their charge account customers, would send letters to them encouraging them to, not exactly saying, please come in, but that's what it was, please come in and buy something. And so, anyway, it was, we didn't have much money at all. And my mother's mother and father and her brother, the men didn't have work, so my dad had to help them quite a little bit, as well as the four of us. So what little we had to divide it quite a ways further, so we were very affected by the Depression. And I remember thinking that if I had, my goal was to have a different 5 dresses, so that I could wear a different dress to school each day and not have to repeat it like two days a week or something like that.
Yeah.
But we were a happy family.
That's good.
And we did fine. Everybody was poor.
Yeah, so, not much to worry about.
You still had money, the little bits of money that you could do extra things with. And of course, our folks tried their best to always let my sister and me have extra money to do things with.
You couldn't go any place except the church on Sunday because there were no businesses open on Sunday back then. So we really didn't have any place to spend money if we'd had it.
Yeah.
And they had, a lot of the churches have, and I don't know if they still do or not, they had, in the evening, they had the teenagers and the college groups would get together, and then that's how we'd go do something, everybody, we'd all go to a movie or go to someone's house or something like that. And they liked to come to our house and dance.
Yeah.
My mother let them, I would no more do that than anything. She let them carry the divan outside and set it in the yard if the weather was good, roll up the rug and set it, and then we danced all evening. So-
What was one of the songs that you remember that you guys really liked to dance to? Do you remember?
Do you remember, sweetheart? I don't know.
You don't know
Songs that were popular then. We danced to everything.
everything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, the youth group. It would be the youth group would come over to the house. Not all of them came. Sometimes maybe they didn't want to, or...
Like Tommy Dorsey and the big band. Is
Yes,
that what it was?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Duke Ellington and
We didn't have money for the boys to take us places, where you might dance like that and all, but
So you just made one.
well, Mother called the church and asked them if it was all right. Did they think it was, said that was fine. They'd rather have them dancing at someone's home like that than going off someplace, to a club or something like that. But I just keep thinking, I admire her now more than anything, that every week she would let them carry the divan outside or move it in the dining room if the weather wasn't good, roll up the rug, tear everything up. They always put it back down, but nonetheless, I wouldn't have done that, I don't think, regularly. But anyway, we had fun.
And which church was this?
The Congregational Church.
Pilgrim Congregational Church, that there was a picture in the paper today, or yesterday was it? Which was it?
I guess it was a church down
Anyway,
about
they had-
13th, where the insurance company is at 13th and, what's the north-south street?
Chartel.
Chartel.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and now it's out. They're not in that building now, and it's out on 63rd
Oh, okay.
between the highway and, I guess, what is it? The main street going north and south.
It's still Chartel.
Would you go pull that shade down a little bit, darling?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.